So hi, welcome to the Noise Podcast. I'm Shane,
I'm Glory.
and we're here with,
Spencer from Underoath.
and we're gonna ask him some questions today about their new album, Voyeurist. So congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to it so far?
Thanks, man. It's incredible to see. Every time you make a new record, you always feel like it's your strongest material, or at
Mhm.
least you should. Going
Mhm.
forward, and we definitely felt that way creating this record and writing it and demoing it and making the final product, and still feel that way to this day. But you never know, like how your core audience is going to react, and it's been amazing to see everyone feeling the same way that we're feeling about it. Like the fans reacting like it's their favorite record that we've ever done is like icing on the cake. It's not. We're going to make what we want to make, regardless what the critics or the fans say at
Mhm.
the end of the day. But when you feel super connected to something, and then it comes out and everyone feels the same way that you do, it's definitely rewarding in its own way. So
For sure.
exciting.
It's
Yeah.
it's been on loop for me since Friday. Like, honestly, kind of made it one of my personality traits over the past several days. It's
Yeah.
very good.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Mhm. So, is there any meaning behind the album name or cover art?
Well, this is a weird question. I'm glad that you asked it,
Of
because
course.
um, it's the first record, and so myself and Aaron, we write all the lyrics and do all the vocal stuff together. And this is the first record we've ever had that the title has nothing to do with the lyrics or the lyrical content on the record. It kind of spawned from when we did the Observatory series, which for anyone listening who doesn't know, we played some old records as a live stream, and we actually did it live. I guess that was unheard of. Most bands do it pre-recorded and stuff like that. But we did these live streams where we actually played these records live. People were watching it in real time. And it was called the Observatory. It was done in a circle, and the cameramen were in there with us. And then we were kind of brainstorming with our team, like what was next. And we had this, kind of catchphrase of voyeurist, letting these people kind of watch us on these cryptic live stream cameras that we had while we were writing the record. And people didn't really know what we were doing, but
Hmm.
if you were paying attention, you could see it. And it was kind of like distorted imagery and no sound. But and that name kind of stuck around as kind of like the next, visual chapter of the band. And where we kind of pulled that from is voyeurist isn't a real word. A voyeur is a word. And a lot of people think it's a sexual thing, like you watch people, doing things you're not supposed to do. But it's really not. It's just people watching, peering in on other people's lives. So in the grand scheme of things, we are all voyeurists, because in the day of social media and iPhones and Androids and all that, what do we do? At least 5 times a day is you scroll
Hmm.
Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, whatever is your social media of preference. You're peering into other people's lives. You're seeing, you know, what they look like, what they're, in like, we're all comparing ourselves to one another in a way. And like, do they get more likes than me? Do they get more comments? Like, everyone's using their best filters and their best angles, and, photoshopping, cleaning up, everything is through this lens. And we're all watching these, especially when, pandemic happened and we're all stuck at home. We're all peering in on other people's lives, but no one ever really posts the real thing. Everyone's cleaning it up and making sure their family looks happy, and you're not really seeing the real deal. So it's kind of this blanket statement of just where we are at as people. It's just, we're all these voyeurists that are just peering in onto these little glimpses of everyone's lives that, be it a celebrity or your next door neighbor. But odds are 9 times out of 10, no one's posting the bad stuff. So it's all, yeah, it's just messing with everyone. I think it makes a lot of people feel insecure and constantly comparing themselves to one another. And yeah, so that's kind of the story behind it.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. And the cover art.
The cover art. So we have this team. They're called Tension Division, and they've been with us since um, the rebirth of the band. So when we broke up and got back together, and they were responsible for the last artwork, and they've done stuff like 21 Pilots and Nine Inch Nails, and they've done they're really creative people that we've known forever. And when they started this company, we've just kind of been with them ever since, and they help us with music videos and the visuals you'll see behind us when we're playing live, and down to the merch designs. Like they're a part of our team. Like we have a great team between Force Management, Fearless Records, Concord, and Tension Division, and they presented us that artwork. And to me, it's the first artwork in a long time I feel like really felt like the way the album sounded to me when I was looking at it. It gave me similar feels. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It feels like grungy and dirty, not too produced or perfect, and just kind of like raw. And I loved that about it. I mean, we didn't make any changes to it. When they presented us the artwork to the band, we were just in love with it. So
it's perfect.
Since you said that the album title and like what you guys are talking about on the record don't like connect, could you dive a little bit into like what you guys are talking about on the record?
Well, I try to tend to leave these things kind of open-ended, just because of my personal experience. Underoath is a band that we've made our entire career by touring, before the age of streaming and podcasts and Zoom meetings, and before all that, when we were first coming up, and the bands that we grew up watching, pre-streaming era, a lot of the bands that you would grow up watching, you saw them live before you heard them on record. So I don't really know. It's tough for me because I meet a lot of people by doing that. Like live is everything for us. And I have a lot of people tell me about a song that I've written that saved them from a certain situation.
Mm-hmm.
And, to be able to, if I was to explain it to a T, like, would that song still mean the same thing to that person? Like someone came up to me one time, for example, this woman came up to me and told me that Writing on the Walls, which is one of our older songs, she was thanking me for that song, how it saved her life. It helped her get out of her abusive relationship with her boyfriend or husband or whatever. And she left that. She said, thank you for writing that song about the abusive relationship. And I didn't say anything. I said, I was listening to the story and we were sharing and stuff. And like, is that song about a very dark time and a bad situation? Yes. Was it about domestic violence? Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
But if I would have said that in an interview beforehand, would she have gotten that from it? But to make a long story short, this album, we write about true stories. There's been divorce in the band. There's been death and family members. There's been drug abuse and, addiction problems and depression. So the things that we go through within our band, within each other and our personal lives, all of it's real. So these songs are all based around that feeling. There's a lot of depression, anxiety, and anger on this record. And I feel like it was kind of fueled by this uncertainty of where we were at and where we were going, being kids when we got into a van and decided to not go to college, decided we were going to follow our dreams when everyone told us we couldn't and it was impossible. And have you ever heard your band? There's no way that's ever going to be mainstream. You'll never go anywhere. Like, you guys are crazy. And we did it anyway. And then at a certain point, we were all told that we were not allowed to do this anymore and had to go home. And, it's not like we fucked anything up or broke up the band again or wrote the wrong record. Like, we were all sent home and it looked like we may never be able to do this again. And I think that uncertainty and anger fueled the record to just, maybe that's why it's more aggressive and darker, but we just wrote from the heart and just about our personal experiences with, the demons that we battle on a daily basis.
Makes sense. So can you tell us a little about your writing process for this record?
Yeah, so there's 4 guys that write in the band, and that's myself, Aaron, Tim, and Chris. And we decided with this record, we wanted to kind of go back to how we used to do things before the internet era of, sending songs back and forth. And we're all capable at this point to where we could write a full song and bring it in and be like, here's a new Underoath song. And everyone would be like, sick. Yeah, let me just get in there and kind of mess with it. And we'll Tim, replay my guitar parts and Chris, add your keys instead of mine, and Aaron's drumming instead of the program drumming, and then Aaron, let's fix the vocals together, and there's an Underoath song. And that doesn't seem to be the most, that works a lot for a lot of people, but for us, I think we decided after making the last record that the best songs are always the songs that we write, the four of us in a room together, at least the music. So the process normally goes that me and Aaron fly in because we don't live in Florida anymore. And the four of us hold up in a room, which is normally a studio space that we have in Tampa, which is where the band is based out of. And we start playing as the four of us and writing and working on, it's like it was back in the day. You used to write your music in a practice space or in your parents', house that they let you jam in or whatever. Like before all this stuff exploded and people go their own ways and, get families and houses and all this stuff. Like we wanted to go back to that, but still using the technology of 2021, which is when we made the record. And that's being able to do that, but capturing it, on Pro Tools and being able to manipulate and move stuff around and, oh, let's redo that part because that's not as strong as this. And like, oh, what if we did this there and that, like just like we would back in the day when we were writing our early records in our practice space, we were doing it, the four of us making the music, but just being able to capture it and kind of demo it out or whatever you want to call it. And then me and Aaron would take the music back to our Airbnb at night, and then we would work on the vocals. And then, a day, a week, however long a song takes, a month, we have songs demoed out and ready for, is it going to make the record? And then once we had a bunch of demos, we felt really strongly about these songs. We felt that they were in a better spot than the last record was at the demo space. And then when you go pick the songs you want to make, and we just really dive in and really, really buckle down, like is every part the best it could be, and like change stuff, try new stuff, just kind of put it on its head and flip it upside down if we have to get it to be the best it could be. So that's kind of the long, short answer, I guess.
All
right. Makes sense. So I want you to tell us your favorite lyric off this album and the meaning behind it, or your meaning for it.
That's like, I haven't even thought about that. Man. I don't know.
There are a lot of lyrics.
I know. And now I'm like just going through them in my brain right now. I don't know. That's a tough question. I think that would change per day, like what kind of mood I'm in. I really like the song Thorn. It's kind of like, it wasn't a single, but I felt like maybe it could have been. And I like the chorus, I'm your thorn, it's basically like when you get to that point where you think the people around you would be better off without you, that song is, so don't resuscitate, please don't resuscitate, lead me to where the light is, like saying that like you're going down this dark path and don't help me out because I feel like it would be better off, you'd be better off without me. Like I'm like the thorn in your side. And I really like how when we got to the finished product of that, the way the chorus hits and the way the melody hits with those lyrics. I've noticed a lot of people connecting with it online that have felt that way and have already reached out to thank me about, them feeling that way, and it makes them not feel alone in in that scenario. And I love, that's like my favorite thing about writing lyrics is if you can humble yourself to write something that's maybe shameful in a way of, you shouldn't feel that way or whatever. It's weird to talk about. I love that you can connect with people. I've gotten a lot of messages already saying, thank you for writing that song. Like it feels good to not feel alone, to feel like you feel like you're a burden to someone else. And that's never the case. And I think that song is kind of celebrating getting through those moments in life that we've all gone through,
I love that. All right. So what song on the album took the longest to write, and which one is your personal favorite?
I would say maybe Cycle took the longest because we had like so many different versions of the chorus till we got where we were. And then waiting on Ghostman to do his part we had already left the studio, and me and Aaron had tracked an alternate bridge in case we didn't get a feature. And he actually did it after the fact. So that song definitely kind of took the longest to be completed. My favorite song, I think, like I said, it's going to change daily. Like, I love the record as a full piece of, like, you start at track one, it's an album, you know, you gotta listen to it in order. To me, it doesn't make sense out of order, but that's just what kind of person I am, I think. But I think Pneumonia, which is the last song on the record, it's such a special song. And I love that song for so many different reasons. But one of the things I think about on a daily basis is that song wouldn't have happened probably if we weren't self-producing our record, because it's tough to allow the art, if you want to call it art, or maybe I sound like an asshole, but, you know, to let it breathe like that, to let it take its own journey, you know, when you've got a producer involved, and producers can be expensive and days are numbered and you have a studio for X amount of time. Like, songs like Pneumonia don't tend to happen because you kind of have to let those things kind of take their own journey. It's like, this isn't a single. We're not focusing on, like, this isn't boosting record sales and all the stuff that the big wigs are concerned about. That song's more for us of like a artistic expression of where does the song need to go and how do we get there, and kind of following it. And that takes time, and that takes days of experimenting where maybe you try a bunch of stuff and it sucks and you're like, man, it was better yesterday, so let's delete all that shit and start over until you get it to a point to where it is what it is. And that song definitely took its own form, and we just kind of followed it. And it's got a special place in my heart for sure.
I actually want to talk about that song for a second. You guys had made it a single, and it feels like, especially after listening to the record, it was kind of an odd choice for a single. So, like, what was the idea behind that? Because
we knew we weren't really pushing a bunch of songs to radio, you know, or single. Like, they're running with Hallelujah right now, and that was always the plan. And there was talks of Thorn, and there was talks of We're All Gonna Die, but they wanted to go with Hallelujah. So the other songs that we were releasing around the record was more our choice of, like, hyping our own fans up, you know, like a song like Hallelujah. Like, when you're a band that's been a band for as long as Underoath has, you have your fan base, you know, and occasionally if you're out there supporting a bigger band on tour that you normally wouldn't play with, which we did a lot of on the last cycle, which was cool because we had to play in front of new people, and stuff like radio or satellite radio or playlisting on Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon and all that stuff gets you in front of new people. So Hallelujah is doing that. And meanwhile, we wanted to showcase the different sides of the record for our core audience, you know, the people that have been stuck by our side from day one. We wanted to show them that this record wasn't just a bunch of singles, that this was an Underoath album through and through. And a song like Pneumonia definitely drove that home.
Okay.
I think for the fans, for the core fans.
Makes sense.
For sure. So what was the process like for putting together the track listing for this album? Did you guys write the opening be the opener, closer be the closer, just kind of shuffle it around? What was that like?
We knew the opener and the closer when they were written, you know, but we don't write in order. We move things around a couple of times until it feels right. Originally, I think We're All Gonna Die was going to be track number 3, and that moved to track near the end of the record to pick up the pace. You know, I kind of think we tend to think of things as, you know, album people. A lot of the guys in the band, including myself, are like vinyl collectors, and you know, there's definitely music that I love that's single based. You know, that, you know, the album is great, but it doesn't really matter what order you put it in. But then there's music that I grew up on and that I still love today. It's very like album based. Like, you want to listen to it in order. It's kind of like a journey. And that's what I've always tried to do with Underoath. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. My back. Okay, there we go. I've always wanted to do that with Underoath. And even if it's just for us, you know, making a track listing that feels like reminiscent of what a Pink Floyd journey, or, you know, would feel like, or, you know, some of the bands from, you know, even our parents' era of, like, just like when albums were albums and you listen to them front to back, and that's the way it felt. We've always definitely strived for that.
All right.
Yeah.
So where was your headspace at while you guys were writing this album?
You know, it was in a weird time, and I think we were all trying to stay busy. Being told that we can't tour anymore. Our summer tour was canceled. All the festivals were canceled. We were planning on writing a record anyway, but we had a summer tour and we had some festivals. And seeing the word canceled is a tough pill to swallow. So we just started writing. We were all working on music constantly during the quarantine era, and I think that was the best way to keep your head out of the gutter and stay positive. But I definitely feel like what I was kind of saying earlier is that it's not a COVID record. There's no songs about COVID. There's no songs about politics. Like the world was very divided and things were going crazy at the time. And we don't write political songs, and I wasn't writing anything about COVID, but those events were definitely fueling everyone's everyday life. I think no matter how positive you're staying and how busy you're staying, I don't believe you if you would tell me that it's not affecting you. And I think the effect was the uncertainty caused anxiety and anger, and not knowing where the country is going or where the world is going, not knowing if we're going to play music live again, and just having, it just like deep down inside, I think there's that fuel of like, you're pissed off and you're anxious and you're unsure of what the fuck is going to happen next, And I think, we were all in a good headspace and we were getting along really well and working really well together. And I think the songs are darker and maybe more aggressive because that was deep down inside that's fueling your everyday, whether you're an optimist or a pessimist, like it doesn't matter. Like you're trying to keep your head up during these uncertain times. And like, at the time, everyone had kids but me in the band. It's like you've got other people relying on you, and this band is our job, and it's like there's a lot of pressure, and I think being in a situation where you have no control, I think as humans we want to control the narrative. Like we're always trying to control our lives, right? Like we pick and choose what we want to do, what food you want to eat, what you're putting in your body, like what you do in your spare time. But I think the scariest thing is that we aren't in control of everything, and I think when that definitely happened to, obviously COVID was a lot worse for, people lost their lives and family members and jobs permanently and stuff, there's a lot of loss happening. And I think that uncertainty breeds a lot of anxiety, fear, and anger. And I think those emotions are attached into the lyrics that we're writing and the music that we're writing about things that are not even related to this situation, but it's fueling it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Makes sense.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Oh, okay. Sorry. So how do you recommend your listeners to listen to this album for the first time? Should they play it in the car with friends, in the dark with headphones on? Is this an album that you play in the gym? What do you personally recommend?
I'm a headphones guy on the first listen, alone. And that can be the gym. That's where I listen to most music, either in my car or in the gym. But I think the first listen is headphones alone. I mean, if you have the time to do headphones alone in a dark room, like that's definitely the way to do it. That's my preference. I try to do that with the most music that I'm looking forward to, and my friends' music. I try to listen to as much new stuff and as possible, but that's definitely my vibe. Headphones first for Underoath.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
So this question should be super, super quick. Off the top of your head, I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words, no more, no less.
All right. Raw, honest, dark.
I like how fast that was.
That was perfect. Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
So is there a certain feeling or emotion you want this album to invoke in your listeners?
Yeah, I want them to be connected. I want them to feel it, like they're not alone. That's always my goal. I was kind of touching on that earlier, but when people feel like their feelings are validated, you know, like there's a lot of, you know, a lot of loss has happened over the last couple of years and bad shit's happening all around us, but like to feel liberated that you're not alone in your feel, you know, in your own personal feelings, you know, like in your questions and doubts, and you know, I want you to feel connected and that you're not alone. That's like my main thing.
All right,
that's good.
So what band or artist influence you think you can hear the most on this album, if any?
I don't know, man. Here's the thing with Underoath is like none of us really listen to heavy music because we've been around it for so long. Like I write all sorts of music. Aaron writes all sorts of music. You know, Aaron's solo stuff is country. You know,
Yeah.
my solo stuff is like indie pop. You know, it's like, and Tim loves hip hop, and like we love every. You know, I love all kind of music. I think good music is good music. It doesn't matter the genre, but heavy music tends to be the last thing I listen to, not because I'm a hater, but because I've been around, like I'm always around it, you know, like I'm surrounded, you know, a lot of times on tour, you're on tour with bands in your same genre. And then the sound guys in between set change, they're playing heavy music. And then when you get into the venue, when we're loading in and like in our green room before they open doors, they're blasting heavy music. And I'm just like, dude. So for me, that's a tough question because I don't feel like we're drawing our inspirations from like the stuff that you can't hear, because we get inspired by stuff that's outside of the box for Underoath, like, you know, like Run the Jewels and Tame Impala and like just stuff that you won't hear at all on the record. And well, I guess me and Aaron we talk a lot about that last Tool record. You know, with heavy music, it's got to be very specific. You know, it's like occasionally a heavy record comes out that'll knock my socks off, and that's what I'm looking for. But that's why when we make heavy music, we want it to be what we're looking to hear, because we're kind of sick of hearing it all. You know, like we want to make something that we want to hear, and that's the goal when you're writing music. Is like, all right, as far as heavy music is concerned, I love all this other kind of music, but if I want to hear something heavy, this should be it. And obviously you don't drive around and listen to yourself, but that's what your goal is and motive when you're writing. You know, like you forget about the fans, you forget about the label, you forget about the manager. You are like, all right, I want to make the shit that I want to hear, and I want to make the best heavy record there is. And then obviously when you're done, you don't want to hear it because it's you, and it just feels weird. But yeah, that's the goal.
Okay. All right.
Perfect. So what is your favorite memory that you made while creating this record?
I just think the whole thing of doing our first self-produced record this far into our career and getting through it without killing each other and breaking up again. I think that finishing it was incredible. You know, I think that's my memory looking back on the record, is that we are mature enough and close enough as friends to where we can have the tough talks and push each other past our limits to make a record without giving up on each other or quitting because your feelings got hurt, or, you know, someone doesn't like the stuff that you do, and vice versa. So my memory is the fact that I was like, man, I think our friendships are better than they've ever been. So
that's great.
That's perfect. I love that.
So picture this: you're on tour, you're at a gas station for a rest stop. What is your snack of choice?
Ooh. Chex Mix, or I like the honey mustard onion pretzel bits.
Okay.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Kind of, I think.
Yeah.
I think I've seen them before.
Yeah. They're terrible. I'm like one of those guys that eats healthy, and like that's like a really important thing to me. So if I'm gonna snack, it's very few and far between, and it's gonna probably be pretty bad. But I normally go for the Chex Mix, I think.
All right.
Okay. And if it isn't like a big deal, what like flavor Chex Mix do you usually go for? Because there are so many. So
Bold.
I feel like it's bold.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I've never had that one. I always go for cheddar.
Ooh, cheddar. That's nice. Oh, you know what else is really good? Combos.
Oh, see, that's what I thought you were talking about.
combos can make you sick if you eat enough of them.
Mhm.
But the pretzel combos are the shit. Those are
Yeah.
awesome. But whatever's in that's got to be like poisonous, because that can't be good for you.
100%.
It's gotta be terrible.
So on the topic of food, if the band was a dish, what dish would the band be?
Wow.
Deep questions.
Jeez. I mean, it would have to be like a rare steak, because it's like gnarly. It's like it's not for everybody. Not everyone eats meat, and not everyone likes heavy music, and especially music that's aggressive. So I feel like it's an acquired taste, and it's like, when you go to a steak restaurant and you order it rare, it's like bloody. That would be probably what Underoath is.
Okay.
Wow, that's perfect. I never would have. All right, yeah.
I have no idea. I'm just going off the top of my head. Maybe I'm craving steak.
That might help it.
Maybe steak
but
for
I mean,
dinner
it makes
tonight.
sense.
I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So where do you see the band in the next 5 years?
I mean, in 5 years, I mean, I think we'd be having these conversations again. We'd be on the record to follow Voyeurist and touring and supporting probably the record after this.
Hell yeah.
Perfect. All right. So for these last couple questions, we're actually going to shift away from music, if that's okay with you.
Do it.
Perfect. So we're actually going to go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with a drink?
Oh God. Can I do I would do like a surf and turf type deal where the steak and lobster, even though I just talked about steak,
I was gonna say,
but yeah, I would do like a surf and turf type deal. And I don't drink beer, but I think if I'm on death row, I would want like a really big, tall, like domestic ass beer, like cold and shitty, like.
Fair enough.
I don't know, because I think I don't know. I haven't drank a beer in I can't even remember how long, but I think that's what I'd probably go for.
All right.
Yeah.
So steak and lobster with some sort of vegetable on the side,
All right.
whatever.
And a dirty beer.
Love it.
Yeah. The fucking Budweiser. Coors like something terrible, just, when they give you the one in the restaurant that's like this tall.
Yeah.
It's like super cold with the big handle on the side. Almost like the emoji and the Apple thing, like the big beers that foam and everything. Something like that. It's like easy to go down, but it's like you're drinking a beer. I don't know.
All right. So if you could live in one fiction world for a week, where would you live?
Dude, no brainer. Harry Potter.
Okay. What house are you?
Definitely Gryffindor. Even though Slytherin is cool, I grew up with that stuff. It's like you always cheered for Gryffindor. So
yeah.
I think being in that world, just Hogwarts, that would be the sickest.
That'd be really cool. Yeah. So I actually have the honor of asking the last question, and every single person you spoke to has said that it is the most important question. What is your favorite color?
Gosh. I don't know. I mean, so that's tough, because you think of your favorite color and then you think of like the clothes that you wear are not typically colored. So I'm like, my favorite color, like I like to see like that burnt orange, like as far as like in nature and like furniture, like in a carpet or something cool. Like, but I would never really wear a t-shirt that's burnt orange. Really, I mean, I may probably have, but like typically not my go-to, as far as clothes. But like just like the way it looks like in nature and stuff, I love that fall leaves are changing to get that like super bright orange, almost red. That's probably my answer.
It's a solid color. So as Chloe said, that's all the questions we have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
Listen to the new record, stream it if you can, get it on vinyl if you're into that kind of thing. And if you're into music that's not heavy music, I have my first solo album is coming out this year under the name Slow Tide without the W. So if you check Slow Tide at Slow Tide Band, you'll find all that stuff. I've got one song out right now. The record's done. I finished the record. I recorded Voyeurist, and then I went home for 5 days because my lady was super pregnant at the time. We hadn't had our daughter yet. So, and I checked on everything. I was like, I'm home for 5 days. And then I went and flew to my buddy's studio in Orlando and tracked my whole solo record. And I'm just kind of waiting to really, I'm just kind of dropping song by song right now. I've only released one song to the world, but the record's been done since the end of March. So, yeah.
Wow, that's
very
a long
exciting.
time. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So the Underoath record was done at the end of February. So that's how long we've been sitting on all this stuff. So yeah, Slow Tide Band, SLOTIDE Band on Instagram and Twitter and all that, and Underoath Band for all the Underoath stuff. You could follow that. Yeah. And you can see two different sides of me, dark and light. So
hell yeah. All right. Well, thank you for now. This has been Spencer from Underoath, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.